lovelies. I think I lost my thingy. Hold on. It's Q&A. Who's here? Let's get busy. I'm going to pull up. There it is. Here we go. Hi, Doris. Doris is here. Who else is here? I got some good questions from Carol Morrison. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you. Hi, Joanne. I got cold suddenly. I've got my wool pashmina. I used to use this. I roll it up and I put it in my backpack and I use it when I'm on flights, that's been a long time. But it's thin wool and it's just nice and warm. So it works really well on airplanes. There we go. Look at, there comes my ladies. Good afternoon to you, Doris. Carol, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. It's chilly and cold outside. Chilly and cold. There's Terry. Yay! How are you, Terry, my friend? You've had some eye surgeries and some other stuff. I've been thinking about you. I see Jen. Come on in. Yeah, we need to keep each other all in prayer, y'all. This is part of our community. Soft touch. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get to this because there's some good stuff here. And I think, I think it's going to affect all of us. I think Carol asked some really good questions. And I think I have a couple of good answers for you. So let's go with that. Hi, Jen. Okay, so Carol Morrison asked some questions. Not Carol Clear, who's here, but Carol Morrison. I know she'll be answering these. And remember, this will be here. It will also be housed in your membership area. So you have access to these things. If you didn't get all of these things down, she's asking for some book referrals. So strong suggestion that if you're a reader like I am, you're going to want to, I've got all kinds of books here. I've got books for days. So, I'll probably be letting you know that, these are just some because I have lots of books that I read. So, first question that Carol has is, can you recommend a couple of books worth reading for growth? Spiritual, personal improvement, etc. Well, let's start with the personal improvement stuff because this is, this stuff, I think anytime we talk about, finally warmed up, every time we talk about this stuff, every time we say, something, like today I talked about process versus progress, it's a thought that comes up and then I kind of etch it out a little bit. And I spent about 5 minutes, writing these things down because a lot of this is all seeds that have been planted from something I've read somewhere else. There's really, nothing new under the sun. But I think it's important because when we understand, that we can change our mind, that we can change the way we think, that we can change things up, then we're going to want to use those tools, right? That's what books do. Books are from thinkers, is what they're from. And we've made a decision, and you have, by virtually plunking down your credit card and saying, I'm all in, I'm going for this, with either Hot Milk Club or Take Back Your Life. That is a decision that you made. You made a decision to up-level your life. And I'm always going to come back to the same thing that says that our health is very much dependent, our weight loss is very much dependent on our health. Our body is going to go with a hierarchy of needs. It's going to heal the stuff that needs healing first before the weight loss comes. This is why we dial in all the things. It's why we dial in our hydration, our sleep, stress reduction, and movement, as well as the food. It's not just one thing, it's several things. And when we move these around, it's like playing a game of chess. It's like, is this the best move for me or is this not? But I believe that when you start with, the foundational principles of what your mindset is, that in and of itself, that's the chessboard. That's the game that it's all played on. Without a mindset shift, you can't just possibly make those things happen and make those things stick. That's why reading is so important. It feeds your soul, it feeds your mind, and it feeds you with ideas and things that start to spark new ideas, new imagination, new thoughts. And personal development is part of getting our health back. Because when we think differently, we do differently. And when we're doing things differently, we're getting our health back. And we're getting our health back, we're taking care of our waistlines, and we're taking care of everything. It's just this magical cycle, unlike the negative loop that we know about that we call the carousel of crazy. This is important stuff. This is needle moving stuff. And when we start there, and this is why I sure expect all of you to show up on Saturday for Full Bloom, and don't forget, right here on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, pajama party, bring wine. This is hot milk mix for right now, but I'll be holding up a glass of wine. Bring wine. We're going to have a blast. Just chit-chatting. There's no agenda. It's just chitty-chatty, having a fun time. So there. It's going to be great. Anyway, back to the discussion. I have some books here that I've written down on books that I consider, because she asked about spiritual and personal development, and oftentimes they intersect. So I have some books that I've read that I found to be profound and just basically life-changing. And a couple of them I'm going to kind of unload a little bit, just simply because I think that's worthwhile too. She also has a question about how to foster a relationship between a mother and a grown daughter. I think she's referring to herself as the mother and her grown daughter. It seems I'm the last person to be told important information. Am I being too sensitive? You know what? Let's tackle this one first, because I think this is good. This is a good thing, and then we're going to go into the books and how to use them. How's that? Let's talk about this. So here's the thing that I know. I have 2 children grown. I have a 30-year-old daughter. How do I get a 30-year-old daughter out of this? I don't know, but I have a 30-year-old daughter, 28-year-old son. My son was the difficult relationship. My daughter was simple and easy. And what I've noticed is about when it comes to difficulty, it has to do with history. So in your history, forgive me, Carol, I'm just pulling out of this something that I think is part of the problem. But it says, it seems like I'm the last person to be told important information. I'm going to guess that you're probably saying that to her too, which honestly is going to probably tick her off. I don't know how old she is. I don't know what your history is, but I do know this, that when we're dealing with a prickly situation or a prickly person or whatever, a lot of times it's heavily loaded because of our history that we have with each other. She may have been a difficult teenager and then grew up and then had some struggles along the way. Maybe you helped her out, maybe you didn't, maybe you did this, maybe you did that. I don't know. There could be some, whatever your background is, whatever your history is, in order to clear the decks and start over, it's got to always come to this place of having a heart-to-heart. Without an agenda, but without an agenda of like, I want to be looped in on important information. Instead of an agenda of that, it has to be built on a foundation of, I want to have a relationship with you. And skip all this stuff for right now. Are you being too sensitive? I think yes and no. You're being sensitive because you're hurt. You want to be looped in. Are you being too sensitive? Yes, because you're overlooking this foundational thing. So one of the things that I did with my son, and I shared the struggle that I had with my son, I believe, with you guys all, and just, he got arrested at 16 for drugs, got arrested again later on for drug dealing. And my whole thing with him, I was heartbroken. I had a daughter who just absolutely held the line. And I used to always say, like, what happened here? My daughter was raised in the house and my son was raised in the backyard by wolves. I didn't understand. And that is so typical. And I think a lot of times people get beat up with Bible verses like, raise them up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. Well, it doesn't always work out that way. You know, it doesn't always work out that way. And I've talked to mothers who've lost their sons, who've lost their daughters or whatever to drugs, to homelessness, to all kinds of crazy things. And I'm here to say to you right now that I'm really done with the shaming, you know, especially using the Bible to shame people with, I think is really sad. That's not what it's there for. You know, this is, you know, a gift of love, the Bible. So we need to be looking at it from that perspective. There's guidelines for living and all of that, but let's just go right now with, you know, our children are raised the way our children are raised. We can all look back and we can say, gosh, I wish I'd done this differently. I wish I'd done that differently. I do. You know, I was really dogmatic and really just like such a beat you up type of a Christian, like do this or you're going to get a spanking. I wish I hadn't done a lot of the things that I did. I wonder sometimes if my children were led by fear instead of love. But I do know this, you know, that when you sit down and you are on the level of telling somebody that you're sorry, telling somebody that you really are apologizing for something that you know, maybe you did out of your own fear, or you made mistakes along the way or whatever. I know one of the things that has always, I think, has saved that relationship that I had with my son, and I have a really good one with him now, by the way. We healed it, and I'm going to tell you what I did. My daughter and I have always had a very close relationship. We talk and text each other probably multiple times a week. I mean, multiple times. My son and I are like every, you know, week or 7 days or 5 days or whatever. I'll just text him or whatever. Different kids, and we can't treat them all the same. We treat them the way that they are. We respond to the way that they are, but there is foundational things. And for me, the foundational thing was this. I sat down with my son, and this is after he had been arrested a second time, and I made a decision, you know, that I cannot keep rescuing him, but that I had to show him that, look, there are choices in life. Here's what you can do, or here's what you can't do. And I got him into a rehab. I got him straightened out, and then he took the ball from there and became, you know, a champion, became a counselor, and became and straightened his own life out. My part of my responsibility was giving him the supplements that he needed to rebuild his physiology. Addicts they mess everything up physiologically, and you've got to deal with that as well as the mindset. So those two things did it, and today he's just a completely different young man. He's 28 years old and almost 29. He'll be 29 in a couple of months, and he has a whole different life. Now, he's not your typical success story, right? He hasn't gone to college. He hasn't done any of the stuff my daughter has and done she did everything that you would want your child to do as a parent. My son has had a different path. He's now making these beautiful wood boards. He's a guide on rafting, and he's a kayaker. He is a nationally ranked kayaker. He's been in Red Bull commercials and done some things. That's the path that he's chosen. And my whole thing has been, instead of me having an opinion on whether or not he should have gone out and been a banker or a real estate guy or, you know, done the typical thing, my opinion of him is that he is being who he is. He's expressing himself. He feels good about himself. And I am there on the sidelines as a coach and a cheerleader, not to tell him how to live his life, but to just be there for support. But we got to that place of having a sit down and saying, you know what? I had to clear the decks. And I requested the meeting, and it was for me. And I said to him, you know, there have been times in I feel like I let you down in some areas. I took him, he was a difficult kid from the very beginning. I'm glad this is just between us. So he was difficult. and he required a lot of energy, and he had a learning disorder that was really late in getting diagnosed. He had and an odd one too. He had all kinds of things going on, and a very difficult relationship with his dad as well. And I just sat down with him and I said to him this: I apologize that I sent you to military school. I thought that would be good for you, and I was wrong. Instead, I know that it damaged you. I think he even had PTSD from it, because they were just so incredibly horrible in that place. And I apologized to him, that I couldn't be there for him in the way that I needed to be, whatever that was. But I just recognized that within him, there were places that he was hurt, and it was directly a mother wound to him. And that's what I said to him. And I said to him, I did the very best that I can, and I'm not trying to excuse myself. I'm trying to let you know from my perspective that I did what I thought was the right thing to do, and if I could take anything back, I would take back these different things. And I cried, and I told him I loved him. I told him I was proud of him, and I told him I wanted a relationship with him. And he cried, and he told me he loved me, and he told me that he appreciated me, basically keeping him out of jail, and getting him into this, pushing and getting him into this place where he had a moment where he could get his life together. These are the things that we all have to be aware of with each one of our children. I think I look at both of my children as very successful. They have not taken typical routes. They have not taken, my daughter writes recipes, and she's a photographer and food photographer and things. She's just done a different thing. That's not what she went to college for. She's chosen a different path. My son has chosen a different path. And with me, everything is okay. I put my seal of approval on their lives. I can look at both of them and let them, and tell them, hey, you should do this instead. You should do that instead. I wait, though, for their ask. I wait for their ask. My daughter called me the other day, and she said, Mom, what do you think of this? And she was asking me a question on what I thought she should do with a particular situation, with something she was dealing with. And I gave her my advice. But I don't offer it without an ask. And the only time that I'll ever inject myself into their lives is when they'll say gosh, this is going on, or whatever. Or my son had an injury from kayaking, and he pulled a muscle and everything, and I immediately sent him a bunch of supplements and told him exactly what to do and how to take them. And I said, you just can't not do this. And he knows, because I've helped him before with these things, that yeah, he's going to be very serious about it. Told him gave him a whole protocol and the whole bit. But that's different, because I'm coming at it, from a different thing. But when it comes to he's talked to me about girls before. He's talked to me about, how he feels inside or whatever. And I'm there to listen. I'm there to hear. And then he said he always feels better. He said he always feels better talking to me, but how do I put those things together? Because he's struggled with depression. He struggled with his self-esteem. He struggled with, where do I fit in this world? And I just tell him, that he's got to keep looking inside. He's got to look up, and he's got to believe with all of his heart that he's on the right path. And that's what will make him happy, and that he can choose at any time to focus on something different if he's unhappy. I've sent him books on tape to listen. Probably hasn't listened to them. I've done things, little different things like that. But what I know is this, is that when we are willing to sit down and be on their level, and willing to build from a place of ground zero, and be, vulnerable ourselves, they will usually join us in that vulnerability. So that's what I have to say about that. And I just shared a little bit from my whole thing, and we can't keep demanding like we could when they were younger, that they tell us things, or that they include us in things, or whatever. My kids both have a very strained relationship with their father. Their dad's difficult. He brought that on himself. He was an overwhelming tyrant, alcoholic, religious zealot. And every time we got settled into church, pulled us out of somewhere else. He'd pull kids out of my car and he's terrorized them. And they have memories of that. And that he has a very convenient memory. My ex-husband has a very convenient memory that he was a great dad. And just because you care for somebody, if it doesn't show up in your actions, it doesn't mean anything. And that's how my kids see it all. They think, he's kind of crazy that way. And it's sad, and they come to me. I never badmouthed them. I didn't have to. I just let it all go. They could see for themselves. They were older. They were, 11 and 13 when we got divorced finally. But, I've tried to maintain a good relationship with their dad because we co-parented for a while. But I've also, I've also known that it's been strained with my kids. It's complicated with them. But I know that my only responsibility is to my relationship with my child. My relationship with my child, grown or not, is my relationship with my child. Are they going to bring me in? Are they going to include me? Are they going to be telling me things I want to hear? Are they going to be a part of that? And I'm saying this for you, Carol. I don't know. But I do know this, that when you lay it down without expectations and apologize for even the things you don't know about, and say you have the right, if you want, to keep that sensitive information to yourself. It's uncomfortable for me. I'd rather know. I'd rather be a part of your life that way. But you have the right to do that if you choose. And I'm gonna have the right over here to say, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, and I'm hoping all the best for you. I want to have a relationship with you. I apologize for things that maybe I did in the past that were wrong and I wish I could change. Can't change the past, but I can change today. I can change today. We can build a new foundation. What do you say? I think we also need to understand as mothers, our relationship with our children go from super intense, from newborns to toddlers to elementary school, they change. And as we go, as they leave, we're on the sidelines now. We're no longer playing the big game with them. We're watching them, we're coaching them, and hopefully they're listening to the coaching. But sometimes we have to be quiet coaches and just sit on the sidelines and not say a word. Let them play their game out the way they want to. And it's difficult. It's hard to keep quiet because when we see them marching down a path that's really destructive, it's really difficult. So that's what I have to say about that. That's just, I'm not a counselor or anything like that. What I am is a person who has worked hard to rebuild relationships that were previously, burnt down. Not sometimes, I added to them, but I didn't I didn't light the flame either. Our best thing that we can do, though, is just be true. Be true and say and lay it out there. Be vulnerable and also know when to button our lips, because we do have a tendency to say, I told you so, or gee, if you only done this, maybe you should let me know next time. Those kind of things aren't going to get us any points, and they're not going to help build the relationship we want. Start over, start with an apology, start with being vulnerable, and start with just loving them where they are and being and allowing for them to withhold if they want to. Maybe it'll come back. That's what you can pray for. So that's that. Meanwhile, I've got 2 questions from Carol asking about specific books. And I'm going to share with you some stuff that I think is just some really great books that I have read that have, boggled my mind and I think are really good. Now, of course, there's some classics, Think and Grow Rich, those kind of things. And they have, it's not so much like think about $20 and get $20 hanging off a tree tomorrow. Think and Grow Rich is, Napoleon Hill. It's an old thing. It's really about changing the way you think. That's what that book is about. And it's a little bit tedious to get through because it's old-timey. There's been some updates to it, but I think it's a good place to start because one of the things that I have noticed, especially for all of us, is that we really need, foundationally, we really need to be thinking things differently, thinking about things differently, thinking new thoughts, disposing of the old thoughts, and replacing them with a higher level of thinking. We don't ever want to be in that place where, we're thinking, well, it's never going to work for me. I can't, blah, 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 blah. And it's just not for me, it's for them. And I'm comparing ourselves and just going into that low vibe stuff. We need to lift it all up and just take it to the next level and believe in that life is working on our behalf, always. And that we're going to find the right answers. And it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of seeking. It's a matter of being open to the possibilities and be looking for it. That's the mindset piece. And the mindset piece is what we develop and work hard on when we're working on personal development. There's a bazillion personal development books out there, a million of them. And some of them are great. Some of them I'm, not really delighted about, but I do know that there are a lot of them. One book that I think is both a personal development book and a spiritual book in a sense is Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Brene Brown did this intense, it was basically her dissertation was on shame as a psychologist, right? It was on shame and understanding the components of shame, what they're about and how we live our lives defined like that is what this whole book is about. So it also hits you on a spiritual level because a lot of us had shame-based religious experiences. And I think that is, I know I did, and I think that is something that we need to take a look at, especially when we marginalize people and we think that we've got the corner on belief. It's just it's so insane to me anymore that there is that out there. And I mean, just take a look. There's a ton of different sects out there. There's a ton of different religions, and there's 17 different Presbyterians, for heaven's sakes, and people like to get caught up in the weeds and discuss things like proper baptism and sprinkle versus dunking versus babies versus big people, and then have these debates. I got caught up in all of that, and I read tons of books, and I got really full on into the whole theology and all of that. And I think sometimes, that's good if that's the route you want to take, but sometimes that takes us away from the whole basic foundational thing that God is love, and spiritually for us, how important is that debate versus how important is it how we grow as a human, as we grow as one of God's children, and as we grow to become the best that we can be and be a contributing person in this very sad state of affairs that we're in right now in this world, with a pandemic, with the polarization of the politics and the us versus them stuff. It breaks my heart to the point where I cry. I see this stuff and I just think it's awful. And I won't promote any of that. I stay completely far away from it. We all have our own convictions and our own whatevers. But I believe that my voice, that my presence, that my place in society, in my community, and what have you, is for a greater good. And that is to promote the beauty of who you are within. How you seek that and what your religious convictions and what have you are is totally up to you. I mean, this is a thing, the very personal relationship between you and God. You get to choose it. You get to choose that path. You don't have to have, 1,000,001 people telling you what it is to do and how to believe and what's right and what's wrong and all of that. Your spirit within will connect with his spirit above. I promise you. So Daring Greatly and shedding the shame and understanding what that's all really about, to me, is a personal development book. It's also a spiritual book. Highly recommended. Brene Brown is amazing. And for those of you who are listening today, go watch her TED Talk on shame. It'll bring a tear. It's enlightening, and it's something that we all need to hear. So there's Daring Greatly. Second book that I would say would be along the lines of both a spiritual book and a personal development book is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which I thought was tedious and awful. Sorry, I just thought it was a terrible book. I tried reading it, and I just couldn't get past all of the, the endless nasal gazing, I guess. It's just so much blah, all about her, me, and do this, do that, then I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I don't know, maybe you had a different thing. So I never was an Elizabeth Gilbert fan until one day somebody was talking about her Big Magic book, and it just had come out, and they say, you just got to read this. Well, I read the book, and the connection pieces that I have are things that you'll hear me even talk about right now, and that's connecting with what we're saying, what we're doing, and putting things out there and imagining that those things are actually coming true. She has a story in there where she talks about how she was writing a book, and the man that she was with at the time, they had to just she had to leave the book behind. It was a fictional book, and it was about this woman who was she was an older woman who was an assistant to this big corporate guy, and she ends up finding this, murder and all the clues that went with it, very detailed, all the stuff that went on it. And her whole thing was that when you see something, when God gives you something, and it's just presented to you, that when you do, if this is to be, then it will be, whether you do it or not, which I thought was an interesting concept. And she goes on to show how this all worked out, and how she had to put this book off so that she could go off to this place for her spouse. I believe, I don't know if he was her spouse or not, but he had to go through these treatments, and it was a year away, and they were somewhere else, and she just kind of put everything aside for him at the time. And then when she came back, she tried to get back into the thing and tried to keep writing the book, and it just wasn't coming together. She was at a conference and met this woman who said, I just really want to meet you for tea or coffee. Will you meet me? And finally, something clicked inside, and she said, sure, let's just get together. They got together, they had coffee, and they were talking about the whole art and craft of writing, and what are you working on, and this, that, and the other thing. And then this woman who had invited Elizabeth Gilbert said, I'm working on actually my first fiction. And she said, tell me about it. And she said, well, it's about this woman. She's an older woman. She's working for this corporate guy. And she finds out, somehow falls upon this information about this guy who got murdered, and all these things are happening. It was exactly the same story that Elizabeth Gilbert was working on. And she just sat there gobsmacked with her jaw open. I mean, the detail was ridiculous. You'd have to read the book to see it. I'm not doing it justice. But what I know is this, what's just the takeaway message from that was the real thing that connected for me, was the connection between putting things out there, getting things done, and then if you drop it and it's meant to be, somebody's going to pick it up and run with it. And I thought of that when, and that whole story has propelled me and moved me to do things where I felt moved by the Spirit, moved by God, to see something, to see an unserved group of women that looked a lot like me, that were a lot like me, that had been through similar things. And what I saw was completely unserved, because I knew from just being in the wellness area what people were connecting with. So I felt like that's my calling, is to connect there. And anyway, good story, something you should definitely read. Big Magic is personal development. Big Magic is a spiritual book as well. Now, as far as personal development books, I've got 3 or 4 for you. Atomic Habits by James Clear is needle moving. He is, in my opinion, is one of the greats for this generation, for this time. And he just talks about setting up, and I've shared a lot of his stuff with you, just setting up an environment that works for you. There's also Tiny Habits. It's a book by B.J. Fogg, which is along the same lines. His is a little bit different, and it's starting with absolute minutia, a little different, and clever though. Sometimes, I just wish, can I just be honest with you? A lot of these personal development books would be a good 3,500 word, article on Medium or something. I mean, I just think some of these are just long and tedious. Just get to the point already. You don't have to drag it out, but that's how they sometimes are. But Atomic Habits is definitely worth a read all the way through, for sure. 7 Habits for Successful People, Stephen Covey is a classic. I would strongly suggest reading that one. I would also suggest, what else do I have here? Mindset by Carol Dweck. I actually did a whole mindset piece. I'm going to share some from her book on Saturday too, so make sure that you're there for that. I think, Terry, you might have been there for that. Did I do that mindset piece? It was a workshop that I did, one of my first workshops that I did. And I don't know if you were there for that one or not, Carol, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not Carol, Terry, sorry. But Carol Dweck's mindset stuff is just, a set mindset versus something mindset. I don't remember the name of it, but it's just how a set mindset will hold us back, and it's total low vibe and all of that. Really good book. And one other book that I really liked was called The One Thing, and that held me together when I was doing my book launch back with Part-Time Paleo in 2014. The One Thing is by Gary Keller, and it's just focusing on that one thing and being good at it. And it's just the mindset pieces that all fall into place that go with it. I also like Brendon Burchard's Motivation Manifesto. Really good. Really, really good. Is that the name of it? Yeah, there it is. So, yeah, there it is. Motivation Manifesto backwards. And I start, I love this book. It's a really, really good one. And that is it. That's what I have for you as far as all the things that are going to make the difference and help to move the needle in your life. There's always new books out there. And my strong suggestion, when you have a book that you're liking, pencil, a yellow highlighter, and come back and read the things that you've read and yellow highlighted. The other thing that I like about that is it doesn't mean you have to go back and reread it. You can just open it up and spend 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour going through and rereading the yellow, the highlighted stuff and the notes that you wrote. I also oftentimes will use that for journal prompts. Like I'll read something that just made me go, ooh, that's whatever. And that's a journal thing, and I'll write about it in my journal. And then later on, something will raise its head and I'll say, oh, I'm going to mention that in my show today or something, because that's how my show all comes together. So anyway, that's it. Those are some things that I have for you. Those are some great books. And as far as, parenting, I'm certainly not an expert, but I do know what it's like to have a difficult child and really want to have the very best for them and be able to build that kind of relationship. So I hope that helped, Carol. Anyway, love you guys. I hope you have spiritual growth and personal development. Okay, I think you're asking questions. Oh, there you go. Yep, she's written it all down. There you go. Look at, somebody took notes. I love it. Anyway, I appreciate you guys showing up so much. And I will see you here on Friday night at 7 p.m. That's tomorrow night, you guys. 7 p.m. Eastern for a pajama and wine party. This, of course, is not wine, but it will be on Friday night. Ha ha! All right, you guys are the best. I appreciate you all. And don't forget, put your question. If you have a question just off the top of your head and you can't find the Airtable or something, just send it in to Jenny at community@savingdinner.com. She'll put it in there for you. She's good that way. She's wonderful. All right, peace out. I'll see you. Love you guys. Bye.